Okay, I'm going to read this article to you. It was a Newsday, but of course, Newsday is paywalled, so I'm going to read it to you from this site here, and hopefully it doesn't paywall me. But this is an article about the climate crisis going on, which again, the media just conveniently ignores. And it says Northwest heat wave shows climate change has no winners. And so, for a long time, people have mistakenly thought of global warming as a sort of zero sum game with obvious winners and losers. Places with fairly cool climates will remain comfortable, the thinking went, while the rest of the planet cooks. Well, as you've seen, that's not the case. A third Pacific Northwest heat wave is in as many years as the latest example of what makes this idea deadly nonsense. We're all in this together. Temperatures have soared above 90 degrees Fahrenheit this week in parts of Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia, nearly 30 degrees higher than usual for May. This follows a Washington heat wave last August that killed 10 people and the regional heat dome of 2021 that nearly killed 800. Meanwhile, large parts of Alberta and neighboring provinces are burning in what is already one of the busiest wildfire seasons in Canada's history, with the peak still months away. At risk are the regions of boreal forests, which store significant amounts of carbon. When these biospheres burn, they make climate change worse, perpetuating a vicious cycle. That's right, all the carbon released in those forests burning, well, that's now escaping into the atmosphere as they burn. About 16 years ago, a controversial column in the Atlantic suggested some people, particularly those in Canada, Russia, and other cold weather U.S. states, could reap major benefits from climate change. In this vision, thawing permafrost in upper latitudes would create fertile new farmland, while melting polar ice would help open up Arctic navigation routes for warships and cargo. As for the overwhelming majority of inhabited Earth, well, shame about your underwater cities. If the world warms, who will win, the column asked, and who will lose? And what's in it for you? As cringeworthy as such questions might seem, the general sentiment apparently persists. Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin recently suggested climate change might be a problem in such unfortunate places as Central Africa, but a warming globe is actually beneficial to his typically temperate state because it means fewer deaths from winter cold. Why wouldn't we take comfort in that? Let's just take a look and see who Senator Ron Johnson is. Senator Ron's probably Republican. I'm going to make a bet he is a Republican. Let's see. Let's see if he is a Republican. It says, doesn't say, well, Wikipedia does not tell us what party he's with. Oh, yeah, he's a Republican. Okay, so there you go. And, look, I'm not saying Democrats are great on climate change, but it's always the Republicans that make these idiotic statements about climate change. Always people like this. All right. So, in response to his comment, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel helpfully put together at least 5 reasons why Wisconsinites could be pretty uncomfortable as the planet warms. And this is pretty shocking and scary. Lower Wisconsin could be part of an extreme heat belt that includes Chicago and southern Michigan, in which temperatures could spike to 125 degrees Fahrenheit by 2053. And Long Island could be, pretty hot too. Much of Long Island, the South Shore will probably be underwater by then. A recent First Street Foundation study predicted. Fast warming winters are already affecting winter sports and tourism. Warmer lake waters hurt fish populations and encourage algae blooms. Rainstorms and lake-effect snowstorms are growing more intense, causing more damage to people, property, and infrastructure. Farmers suffer from heavy rainfall events and pests and diseases that will survive warmer winters. In reality, nowhere on the planet can avoid negative effects from climate change. That's right. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide. Temperatures can surge beyond local tolerance at any place or time at great cost to human life and health, as we've seen in the Pacific Northwest. Flooding and sea level rise are a threat regardless of latitude. Localized weather extremes such as El Nino Southern Oscillation in the western Pacific Ocean can affect weather around the globe. Small shifts in climate can have exponential and unpredictable effects on biospheres and quality of life. The Arctic is warming 4 times faster than the rest of the planet. The dream of an increasingly balmy, fertile Canada is on fire. Even if the climate did become uniformly pleasant, say, above the 40th parallel in the continental United States, then there would still be the matter of climate refugees fleeing the far less pleasant lower reaches. Already, much of the migration from Central and South America causing so much agita in the United States is driven by droughts, crop failures, and natural disasters fueled by climate change. By mid-century, a warming planet could force 216 million people to migrate within their own countries. How comfortable will future Ron Johnsons be with housing millions of, say, displaced Floridians, not to mention Guatemalans? You might consider it a small victory that the dubious winners-losers framing at least acknowledges the reality of climate change, but it also minimizes its importance, offering yet another excuse to delay action to avoid the worst outcomes. Alcoholics often try geographic cures, moving to another place in hopes it will solve their problems, only to realize they took their biggest problems along for the ride. We can't make the same mistake with this planet. And that's, very well written. I saw this in the Newsday. I was reading it on the Newsday in the library, and I was thinking of copying it over, but I figured I was going to look at it on my computer. But this is the climate crisis that we're going through right now. And if you go to any of the mainstream media, and this was also written in Bloomberg as well, but if you go to any of the mainstream media, let's go. CNN.com. Is there anything about climate change here? Not really. Mostly politics. All right. What about Fox News? .com. Go through all the... Nope. Autocomplete is trying to... Anything about climate change here? Oh. They want me to allow ads. Okay. Well, yeah, they wanted to say it. But I don't see anything about climate change here. What about MSNBC? Anything about climate change here? No. And of course they have the sign again because I got an ad blocker enabled. So you can see nothing about climate change anywhere. All right, what about WGN Chicago, where they're dealing with all that smoke? Don't see anything about it here either. Nope. You do mention the haze in the weather update, but that's about it. Okay, so now let's go to... We're going to change it. All right, can you see where the American media is at? They're like completely heads in the sand about this. Let's see CBC. CBC Canada. Let's see if they're talking about it. All right, CBC, the main CBC, you have to scroll down a little bit, but they are covering it, at least here. All right, but it's toward the bottom when it should be the top story. I know CBC has different divisions. The CBC Saskatchewan. So if you go to CBC Saskatchewan, for instance, then you see then the fires come up as the main thing. But you can see the media just is ignoring it. Well, let's go to the BBC as well. BBC World News. Let's see if BBC World News is talking about it. Not really. Nope, not in the top page at all either. So it's not just America. BBC isn't talking about it either. It's all politics, war. They don't want to talk. They don't. Nothing about climate. So it's not even just the United States. It's almost the whole world that is in denial of this. And they just want to... Don't waste your time with all this stuff. We've got a planet on fire here. All right? But no, they're going to talk more about politics. They're going to talk about this stuff, the war in Ukraine and all this stuff. And it's horrible. Look, it's horrible. But climate crisis is the worst thing. But nobody talks about it. What about WEON? This is another thing. WEON News. This is another thing. Let's see if they're talking about it at all. or at least they're talking about it, climate activists. At least they have a tendency to be a little better than some of the other networks, at least. But still, you can see that it's largely ignored. It's largely ignored what's going on. And when you look at Canada wildfires, I mean, a lot of the news you're getting isn't even current. One day ago, or there's one that's 6 hours ago, but I mean, it's just, people are just in denial here of just how bad this climate crisis is. I don't know what it's going to take to wake humanity up out of their ignorance about how screwed we are. It really is. This is the best one we have for you. This is from Yahoo News. Canadian Armageddon sets, that's exactly a good way to put it, sets parts of Western Canada on fire. As acrid smoke filled the air, turning the sky around her sleepy hometown, Fox Creek, Alberta, a garish blood orange, Nicole Clark said she felt a sense of terror. With no time to collect family photographs, she grabbed her young 2 children, hopped into her pickup truck, and sped away, praying she wouldn't drive into the blaze's menacing path. This feels like a Canadian Armageddon, like a bad horror film, said Clark, a 37-year-old hairstylist standing outside her truck, a large hamper of dirty laundry piled in the back. Again, a truck. Does she really need the truck? That's the irony of it, isn't it? That people driving trucks around, when a car would probably do just fine and consume a lot less and emit a lot less. In a country revered for placid landscapes and predictability, weeks of out-of-control wildfires raging across Western Canada have ushered in a potent sense of fear, threatening a region that is the epicenter of the country's oil and gas sector. Oh, the irony in that. Climate research suggests that heat and drought associated with global warming are major reasons for the increase in bigger and stronger fires. Amid frequent fire updates dominating national television news broadcasts, the blazes have also helped unite a vast and sometimes polarized nation, with volunteers, firefighters, and Army reservists from other provinces rushing in to lend a hand. Roughly 29,000 people in Alberta have been forced from their homes by the recent bout of wildfires. All right, 29,000 people, all right? Though that number has been cut in half in recent days as fires subsided. So fortunately, it looks like they're finally starting to subside for now. Clark said her family had been staying in cheap motels since they were ordered about a week ago to evacuate. But she and her boyfriend were unemployed and money was quickly running out. Yeah, where's the help for these people? I don't know if I'll have a home to return to, she added Thursday. The fires have produced such thick smoke that during recess, children in some towns have remained in their classrooms rather than risk smoke inhalation outside. Dozens of residents left in such a dramatic panic that they left pets behind. On Highway 43, a long stretch of Alberta highway peppered by small evacuated towns, the thick layer of smoke blanketing the road on Thursday conjured the feeling of a dystopia. With helicopters hovering and dropping water, police cars with flashing lights blocked part of the highway as fires approached the road. Residents trying to return to homes they hoped were still intact commiserated as they were forced to turn back. Fires have broken out throughout Western Canada, including British Columbia, but hardest hit has been neighboring Alberta, a proud oil and gas producing province. The irony of that. Isn't that the irony of it? Sometimes referred to as the Texas of the North, which has declared a state of emergency. More than 94 active wildfires were burning as of Friday afternoon. Well, perhaps we should shut down all that oil and gas production like right now. All right? British Columbia was the site of in 2021 of one of Canada's worst wildfires in recent decades, when fire decimated the tiny community of Lytton after temperatures there reached 49.6 degrees Celsius or 121.3 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so this is what's going on. Not since the worst of the COVID-19 pandemic buffeted the region has the area been so overcome by apprehension, accompanied by the all-too-familiar need to wear masks outside. Only this time, residents say, a silent killer has been replaced by something more visceral and visible. So far, no deaths have been reported, but in Alberta, Frankie Payu, a firefighter and 33-year-old father of 3 from East Prairie Metis settlement in northern Alberta, was in a coma with severe injuries after being hit in the head by a burned tree. His home was also destroyed by a fire. The bulk of the fires are in the far north of the province, home to many indigenous communities, dealing a heavy blow to people who depend on the land and natural resources. At a sprawling evacuation center in Edmonton, Ken Zenner, 61, a father of 8, 2 of whom are members of the Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation, said he and his family had been evacuated from the town of Valley View. He worried about how they would get by. Families that have been displaced for a cumulative 7 days are eligible for government-provided financial support according to provincial regulations. But Zenner said he didn't qualify because he's only been evacuated for 6 days. Indigenous communities have been underfunded for years, and now we are seeing the consequences. The rest of the country is mobilizing to help. 2,500 firefighters are battling the fires, along with 1,000 from other provinces and even people from the United States joining them are wilderness firefighters from the United States. The fires have even affected Alberta, Canada's largest city, Calgary, where residents said this week they sat down for breakfast only to see and smell pungent smoke from entering the cracks in their front doors. So even with all the windows closed, you can still smell it. Environment and Climate Change Canada said the air quality index for the city Wednesday afternoon was at 10 plus or very high risk. Canadian health authorities have warned smoke could cause symptoms ranging from sore and watery eyes to coughing, dizziness, and chest pains. In Alberta, the blazes have brought back bad memories of 2016 when a wildfire pretty much destroyed almost the whole town of Fort McMurray, Alberta. All right? 2,400 buildings in the heart of Canada's oil sand region. Again, the irony there. The irony. You'd think they would get the message. Maybe we should stop drilling for oil. Maybe we should stop burning fossil fuels. You'd think they would get the message by now. Alberta is Canada's main energy-producing province and United States' largest source of imported oil, and the fires have compelled such companies to curb production. As the flames bore down on wells and pipelines, major drillers such as Chevron and Paramount Resources together shut down the equivalent of at least 240,000 barrels of oil a day. That's part of the reason why the stock market went down on Friday. Yay! For now, the disruptions only affect a small proportion of the country's total oil and gas output. Still, they underscore how the production of oil and gas, the main driver of climate change, is also vulnerable to the increasingly dire consequences of a warming planet. Some say the smoke may help galvanize Canadians about the perils of climate change. You think? The smoke from fires has an in-your-face impact affecting millions of Canadians that makes it harder to ignore, the CBC, the national broadcaster, observed this week. The human toll of the fires will reverberate for weeks to come. Christine Petty, a business manager for a logging cooperative in Edson, a rural town about 2 hours west of Edmonton, said residents were still shell-shocked about being evacuated. She and her husband left in such a rush that he forgot his insulin medicine. They were fortunate that their home remained standing. Still, Petty said, the experience definitely shook me to my core. So, again, these wildfires are burning, and it's a crisis going on. I've never seen it this bad ever. And I've been following the weather for a long time. And I think we have wildfires in Siberia, too, if I'm not mistaken. I don't see any going right now, but there might be some. And I see a little smoke here, too. Or maybe it's made its way all the way from Alberta. But this, again, is all that smoke that you're seeing right here on this MODIS satellite. It's just been incredible. We could just go back the past couple of days. You can see how the fires and the smoke have just spread throughout. And you can see here it's actually gotten much worse. So we're going to go back all the way to May 13th, and you can see how it's flared up. And really just the smoke is today, and the smoke is just everywhere. And again, if we add a layer here and we add the fire layer to it here, fires and thermal anomalies, and add that, and then add in here, you see these dots here, all the fires burning here, and there are a lot of them. So, and they're still burning as we speak, and this is a worldwide crisis, worldwide, but yet the media just ignores it because the media is owned by Wall Street. They're owned by the businesses, the governments. They're all, we need a massive climate protest, but no, nobody is willing to do that. Nobody's willing to, we'd rather protest and look. I know people are upset about some communities dealing with the unfair burden of the, migrants coming. But, I think this is a bigger thing to protest about. I think this is the biggest thing facing this world right now. Because it doesn't matter what country you're in. This is going to affect you, and it's going to make life harder and harder and harder. And eventually, society could collapse because of it. It will if we don't fix this. Everything's going to collapse. This whole planet is going to collapse. That's what you're seeing right now. The collapse of a planet. As some other the guy on YouTube talks about. But, I hate to say it, I'm starting to become a doomer just like him. Because I just don't see people changing their ways. But yet I'm going to keep talking about it, even if it's futile. So, thank you for watching. Good night.